Starfield is a hugely demanding game, both on CPU and GPU. The game looks beautiful, which is league beyond any previous title. But some places look flat compared to the others. So here is a complete optimization guide to help you play the game optimally on your computer. Welcome back to Silicophilic, your go-to source for tech tips and fixes. Before we move forward, make sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video. It's free and helps us a lot. We do tons of research to find the working solutions for you. Your little support will help us continue making solution videos for you and others. So let's dive right in. Optimization target. The target of this optimization guide is to get 60 plus FPS consistently without sacrificing too much of the visual quality, which is this game's artistic ambition. For reference, we played this game on the following specifications: CPU Ryzen 5 7600X, GPU NVIDIA RTX 4060 Ti 8GB, RAM 16GB RAM LPDDR5 5200 MHz, storage 500GB NVMe M.2. Based on this, you can modify your own game to get the best out of your configuration. Section 1. GPU Settings. Since most of your experience will be GPU bound, so let's start with talking about the graphic settings that will affect the frame rates you will get when playing this game. First, in the display settings, select Ultra preset. Shadow quality. Turn off dynamic resolution and then set shadow quality to high. This will give you one of the largest performance gains, especially outdoors, and you do not sacrifice the beautiful sceneries. Notice in this instance, as the shadows become less pronounced on the high setting, but you will gain additional FPS and the difference is barely recognizable. This will reduce the shadow draw distance and remove incidental shadow from other objects. Now, the furthest we can recommend is medium, as going any lower than that will give you barely any performance gain, but will degrade the visuals a lot, as the detailed shadows from objects will be removed. So only use high or medium at most. Volumetric lighting. Next, we have the volumetric lighting, and just use low setting for this one. The degree of performance gain will vary on lighting conditions in various situations, but the boost in performance can be substantial in some areas. And the visual difference is really hard to pinpoint. Just take a look at this example. Can you even tell the difference? How about in this situation, when the volumetric lighting does not even matter? Can you notice any difference at all? Particle quality. Another setting to focus on is particle quality, and this one is quite easy to get wrong. In certain situations, for instance in ones with explosions and underwater, it might seem that high particle quality setting is the one to go for. However, as you will notice, going down the setting to medium and low significantly improves the frame rate. We noticed a jump of around 15 to 20 frames per second by changing particle quality setting from high to low. But is there a visual sacrifice when changing particle quality? You be the judge of that. Grass quality. Next, we have grass quality. The effects of this one depend on how much time you spend on which location. You will definitely notice that when you go down the settings from high to medium to low, the foliage and vegetation density will decrease in visual quality. But at the same time, there is also an increase in FPS. For us, we left the setting at high, and medium and low seemed too barren for us to enjoy the game. However, feel free to go down the settings if you need some performance headroom. Motion blur. Motion blur also has a decent impact on performance. So turn it off unless you are running below 60 frames per second and need a little smoothing. Section 2. Subtle Performance Boosters. Now that we have dealt with the settings that provide the most performance boost, let's move on to some other settings you can change to boost performance. Changing these settings won't give you massive FPS gains on their own, but you can combine a few of them and boost the overall performance. Reflections. Honestly, the reflections in this game are not really that impressive, and you will not sacrifice any visual quality even if you go down to medium. You can comfortably use medium to play your game without losing any details, so just use medium. Changing it to low does not give any FPS gains and the image quality looks bad, so we don't recommend using this setting. Indirect lighting. Indirect lighting is another one of those sneaky settings that seem essential, but provide almost no performance boost as of notice. However, there is a huge visual degradation once you go to low, and this gets worse as you use the resolution scaling slider. In some instances, we found that the image becomes pixelated on the screen, making the game unplayable. So just use Ultra as the setting does not really affect performance. GTAO. Next, we have the GTAO quality, which affects the ambient occlusion. For this setting, we only recommend high as this is the perfect balance of image occlusion depth and performance. On our PC, we barely found any difference between high and ultra, both in terms of image quality and performance. So keeping the setting on high should give you the perfect balance between the two. Contact shadows. Next, we have contact shadows, and this is also one subtle option as its graphical effect is mostly noticeable outdoors under sunlight. For instance, in this scenario, you will notice that the granular contact shadows offer a much more profound effect and visual complexity to the object. Fortunately, this does not affect performance too much, so we recommend going high for this one as it is very similar to Ultra. However, do not set this to low as it will disable this cool effect and make the image bland. For some reason, indoor scenes do not have the same effect, so you can comfortably leave the setting at high. Upscaling FSR 2.0. The game is clearly designed around AMD's Fidelity FX Super Resolution 2, and even the highest graphics preset defaults to FSR 2 running at 75% of the native resolution. Starfield instead includes a slider that goes from 100% of render resolution to 50%. Right in the middle at 75% is definitely the sweet spot for image quality. So optimizing your performance with settings is best rather than pushing FSR 2 down to its lowest point. Section 3. CPU boosts. In our testing, we found that Starfield is particularly taxing on the CPU, so you need to reduce some of these settings if your CPU is not powerful as your GPU. Crowd density. Turning down the setting vastly reduces the load on CPU, so it's a good place to cut if you want to boost your game performance. Crowds still look dense even at the lowest setting, but when it's maxed out, you can see 50 or more people in an area at one time. Variable rate shedding. This setting is on by default and you should leave it that way. You may not see it at work depending on how powerful your system is, but it can boost performance a lot on older, less powerful systems. Summary of best settings for Starfield. Here is a recap of everything we talked about till now. Dynamic resolution off. Render resolution 75%. Graphics preset custom. Shadow quality high. Indirect lighting high or ultra. Reflections medium. Particle quality low. Volumetric lighting low. Crowd density low. Motion blur off. GTAO quality high or medium. Grass quality high. Contact shadows high. VSync on. Upscaling FSR 2. Enable VRS on. Depth of field on. And there you have it. These are the best optimized settings to play your game without losing any visual effects. If you find this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more tech tips and troubleshooting guides. Leave a comment and help others know which solution solved your problem. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next video.